evening, everybody. So today or tonight, we are going to have hopefully an interesting and informative discussion with Sister Angelica Lindsay Ali, who's also known as the Village Auntie. She is a world-renowned sex and intimacy expert, relationship coach, founder of the Village Auntie Institute. I think she's here. Writer, storyteller, amongst others. Let me add her. From the bedroom. Oh, mashallah. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamualaikum.
How are you?
Rushing.
Sorry.
I just finished the other workshop, so I'm having some beet juice for energy.
Oh no, oh no. I did say I wanted to give you actually a couple of hours between, the workshop that you had and now. I'll be
It's
honest.
fun.
I know. I will say something now. I know that some people might be upset with what I'm going to say, but I think your welfare is the most important thing. If you're not feeling up to it, we can reschedule. Honestly, I'd
No,
rather
no,
to
no,
have
no.
you. Are you sure?
No, it's fine. Yep. I'm sure.
You don't sound well.
No, I'm good. No, that's because was just guzzling
Are
this
you sure?
beet juice.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sure. I'm
Because
good.
I know sometimes when you do like workshops and talks, it takes a lot of energy out of you, and it can be quite exhausting. As much as it's nice, that's what I was thinking in terms of timing. I wanted the time that would be suitable, obviously, for people in the States as well as us, the UK. But ultimately, I wanted
No,
to make
it's
sure that
good.
are you sure?
No. Yep, I'm
Okay,
sure.
but if halfway through I see you're a little bit drowsy, I will lock it off. I'll tell you that now. I'm not gonna lie. I saw one
Okay.
of your other, I saw one of your other talks a couple of weeks ago, and you wasn't 100%. And when we did our first talk,
hmm
you was 100% as well. So that's why I don't want
Yeah, I
to.
think I was still recovering. I think the last time we did the talk, I was still recovering from COVID. I think.
Yeah,
I can't
yeah.
remember. But no, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, alhamdulillah. Because I know that a lot of people have been waiting. And they've been asking all these questions. I'll be honest, I'm not going to ask a lot of the questions that people ask. I've told them
They
to
sent you questions
either
again?
a lot. But to be fair, I
Oh,
did ask, but a lot
okay.
of the questions you've already answered in your
Okay.
podcast. So I've told people to go to check out your podcast or to sign up to your upcoming course as well. But I wanted to, obviously, we'll speak a little bit about your upcoming course. But I
hmm
also wanted to talk about what we spoke about offline. I thought that might be quite an interesting topic. So before we get into the topic itself of like know your worth, and I'll speak about my experiences, and maybe you can share some of your experiences as well. Do you
hmm
mind giving like a very, for the benefit of maybe anyone who doesn't know who you are, an elevator
Oh,
pitch about who you are and your upcoming course?
sure. My name is Angelica Lindsay Ali. I'm known on social media as the Village Auntie. I am the leader of a global women's movement spanning 86 countries. I'm a certified sexual health educator and intimacy and relationships expert. I am a health researcher, a public health professional with 18 years of experience. And my work really lies at the intersection of the sacred and the sacral. So I am a curator of women centered spaces where they can express their authentic need for knowledge and community around issues directly related to spirituality and sexuality specifically. And I have an upcoming course on Saturday, March 20th, which is that 2 weeks? That's 2 weeks from today.
Cool.
It's called The Art of Seduction Part 2. You do not have had to attend Part 1 in order to come to Part 2. And we're going to be delving more deeply into holistic anatomy, ways to harness sexuality, sensuality, and seduction, not as a tool of manipulation, but as a tool of emotional power sharing with our mate. We're going to be talking about BDSM as a tool for bringing closeness with partners. We're going to be talking about the use of sexual fantasy as a way to heal trauma. We have live dance and we have recipes. So that's me in a nutshell.
MashaAllah. That introduction was much better than the previous one. I love that how you mentioned the global and the 86 countries, which is. But you forgot about you being an author, a storyteller.
Did I say that? Yeah, I didn't put
No,
that in there.
yeah, you
I'm
didn't
getting
mention that.
little by little.
And you're also the founder of the Village Auntie Institute as well. I don't think you mentioned
Yes,
that as well, but yeah, we need to give you your
I did
flowers
that.
whilst you're here. So, And how much is the course?
The course is $100, which is a steal. It's a
And
big bargain.
how long is the workshop or the
It's
course? Sorry,
3 hours. Yeah, it's a 3 hour
3 hours.
workshop. Hmm.
So
Hmm.
$100, and you're
Hmm.
so for 3 hours worth of expertise from someone who's got over 18 years of experience, world renowned, and you're charging $100, which I wasn't best pleased with. I'm
I
sure
know.
your fans are people who are going there to attend, but um, we had a little, just for the benefit of people just listening now, we had a brief chat a few days ago, and
Hmm.
I would say not only for yourself, but I think many of us, myself included, I think sometimes we, as a people, we undervalue ourselves, and I don't think we charge what we should charge in terms of our services. And I think a lot of people, and I think even from an Islamic perspective, it's not a case of being arrogant or anything like that. But I think the reason why I think it's important that we charge what we should charge is
Hmm.
because in the beginning, when we're doing these type of initiatives, obviously first and foremost we're doing it from a place of love and for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But there'll be a period of time where that will wane. And you would need some, not to say it's wrong to do something for money, but you need to look after yourself. You've got families to look after. And I think even for people to appreciate, because what
Hmm.
they're getting is not, they're not getting 3 hours worth of your time. They're getting over 18 years worth of your time, which you've also put into a succinct workshop for people to benefit from. And that's worth a lot of money. And I
Hmm.
think even charging $100, as much as, again, I'm sure people, and I'm sure people are not going to like me saying this, I think it's way, way, way below what you should be charging. And again, I'm not saying this so you can put your prices up for the next workshop, which I expect you should do. But I just think for people to appreciate you, and obviously even for you to not also undervalue yourself, because you can also look at your contemporaries as well, and that's something that we spoke about a little bit after that, what they're doing and what this, and if they're, and it's good in any type of business. You do like a due diligence, so you look at the market and you see what your competitors are offering and what they're charging, and then you maybe do something similar. And if you know that you're bringing something similar to the table, which is just as good, if not better, than what other people are doing, then why can't you charge something similar or even more than what other people are doing? So that's something that um, we had this chat a few months
Yeah.
ago, and then when I saw the price again, I was like, "What is going on?" I was like, "Oh my Lord!"
Well, because the
Oh, that
because
is
it's part two, so we had to price it the same as part one. But you're right. You are absolutely right. And I'm gonna go out on a limb, and since you're Nigerian, and you know how our people like to speak, we talk heavy, right?
yes.
What what I will say is that I have contemporaries, right, who offer similar types of workshops, but there is no one who offers the same kind of workshop experience that I offer. And I say that with certainty, because there's so much that goes into it. And with this workshop, they're not just getting instruction from me, but I'm bringing in my friend Lacina Martin, who is a cultural historian and a master African dancer
Mhm.
who has over 25 years experience. I'm bringing in Dr. Shakira Abdullah, who is currently a PhD student in human sexuality. Like we have, slides that are created. We have traditional recipes that have been reworked for the modern kitchen. I'm teaching women how to make their own cayenne mata, right? So you're not, that alone, just the recipe piece alone could be
Mhm.
$100. So um, I'm taking the advice for the next time. This is the part two, so we're kind of already locked into the pricing, but we won't offer it at this price anymore. Inshallah.
Okay, no, that's good. And again, it's even for people to value, because, like you said, you've got three experienced facilitators who are
Mhm,
bringing their wealth of experience and knowledge. And
mhm.
to do justice, not only because we always, even as Muslims, we speak about the principle of being adl and just to others. We need to be just to ourselves. And if you know what you've put in, and again, if it's you're given a unique offering,
Mhm.
again, then there's no harm in charging something which you deserve, and not only yourself, because again, if you want to be just to your other facilitators, you also need to make sure
I
they're
pay them.
compensated as well.
Yeah, they
Exactly,
get right. They
and
get
and that is
paid.
something that and that is something that many, I mean, I mean, the two taboos, especially in a lot of both Black and Muslim cultures, I've noticed is that either the taboo of sex, speaking about sex, or the taboo of money. And it's something that we've spoke about sex and intimacy enough, so we don't need to talk about that now. But I think the
Sorry.
money talk is also an important talk as well. Not necessarily we need to delve into how much money we make and things like that, but it's important that people understand um, but have honest conversations about money, especially the business that we're doing, especially if you're a freelancer or self-employed or you're offering some services, it can be quite difficult to price like, okay, how much, not, and it's not, and when I have these discussions or listen to people that are schooling me about pricing things, it's not always thinking about what would I pay, it's what is a customer willing to pay, what is my client willing to pay. And sometimes you wouldn't know that because you're only going by your life experience and something might be normal to you that, for example, yourself that's well traveled, spent years in both in West Africa and also in the Middle East. So you're bringing that years of experience and also your time in the United States and your unique personality. So you're bringing all of that, but because that's part of your life, you're just thinking you
It's
might
not
not
enough.
really appreciate exactly where there's people that go on 3 year undergrads or postgrad course and they'll spend maybe like a year or 6 months in a part of the world doing a bit of research and then they would then all of a sudden charge a premium. And that's something that again I think as um, Black people, not only just Muslims, I've noticed that's something that we kind of I think sometimes struggle with in terms of not um, we undersell ourselves and not really appreciate the value that we're bringing to the table kind of thing. So that's why it's good to have these conversations because when you realize what other people are doing and what their rate is, and you realize not in an arrogant way that I'm doing something similar or even better, then why can't I charge something similar? And then you'll find that sometimes, and again, it depends on the person's business model or what they're trying to get out of it. Because if, for example, like with yourself, you're offering, and I do apologize, I'm kind of ranting here, but it's
No,
something that I'm
no,
quite passionate
no,
about.
it's good. And you know, it's also good because people always think like I do this work just, by myself, but they don't know like Habib will be in my inbox like, why are you charging this amount? Like
Yeah,
this is not enough. Or so
yeah,
it's good for people to also see this because this is the other side of the work that I think is
yeah.
very important, the advising. So I'm listening. I'm
Yeah,
listening.
and it's important for people to be aware. You don't necessarily have to tell people, but hopefully people be listen will be aware that, like you mentioned, there's other people that you're paying and looking after. It's not just you yourself, because someone might think, okay, it's just a cost for you, and it's like, no, the money's being spread around, and on top of that, it's not like I just need to charge what my costs are. I need to charge something that's actually going to make me feel okay. I'm going to feel inspired to do something similar, or even to expand it and to grow it unlike what you're doing with the Village Auntie Institute, to teach others so then they can be empowered and feel, okay, this is a self-sufficient venture that I can do. And hopefully maybe this might be something I can do in terms of my career. But if it's something that we're always treating like a side hustle that you just do now and again, and it's not really enough to kind of like feed you or feed your family, then after a couple of months or it'll be enterprise that you won't continue. And that's something that I think we need to, whether it's we're talking about books, whether it's speaking about speaking engagements, whether we're speaking about workshops, um, I think it's important that it has to be like a self-sufficient model as well. And what you're doing is self-sufficient, but we need to make sure the financials are in place that, okay, this is like a ready-made model that even when you're teaching people with the institute, you're also building in like the pricing and like the business side, so they can realize, okay, I can take this and go ahead with it. And the different packages that you're offering, whether it's one-on-one, which is obviously going to be way more expensive than if you're doing a intimate workshop of 5 to 10 people, that'll be a set price. If you're doing it up to maybe 300 people, be a set price. If you're doing up to 1,000 people, be a set price. And people have to appreciate that you can't get one-to-one access with a village auntie where she's going to respond to my DMs or have one-to-one counseling and paying the same rate as if I'm sitting down amongst with 500 people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, especially
And
within
they
the
think
Muslim
that.
community, they do think that, and
They
they know
think
they
that.
do think that, and
Mm-hmm.
it's this, and some people maybe try, um, maybe some emotional blackmail, or I would say it's spiritual abuse, where they try and say, for the sake of Allah and this, that, and the other. I get it all the time, but I can be quite blunt. But it's something that we need to protect ourselves. That's even in this field that we don't let
Mm-hmm.
others take advantage because it can be difficult to stand up for ourselves and say that no, this is my rate in X, Y, and Z because people, especially if they've built up a relationship with you, they'll try
Yes.
and kind of use it to the, but they don't do that when they're buying Apple products or whatever from these stores or Amazon. They don't
No.
try and negotiate with Jeff Bezos, so they can't be doing it with us. But we just need to make sure we're steadfast. And after they'll appreciate it as much as it can come across as a bit like just thinking about money all the time, this and the other. They will appreciate it after, and I think it's something that I just kind of wanted to. Not only we spoke about this in privately, but for other people hopefully to kind of be aware of, because I know it can be harder for women and sisters more than men. Because if a man
Mhm.
is, even in terms of a job, asking for a pay rise, he's assertive, he knows what he wants. Whereas with women, are, especially Muslim women, are expected to kind of be this understand of modesty is like you don't ask for your rights, which again, that's not from Islam. So I think it's important that not only by understanding what our rights are, but obviously exercising those rights as well. So that was my preamble. I kind of wanted to kind of let, because even when a couple of people was messaging me, "No, your work from the boardroom. What are you going to talk about now?" I just said, "Just wait. Let's. It's not just about boardroom company. It's just business." But yeah, I
Mhm.
wanted to play on the
Mhm.
bedroom boardroom. But I said we've spoken enough about sex and intimacy, and there's enough content on there. But there's the other side about the business of intimacy or the business of pleasure, which um, we needed to kind of like. I wanted to kind of address. Sorry. There
Yeah.
was actually something else I wanted to ask you. You mentioned um, that seduction is not the tool of manipulation for your workshop. Can you expand what you mean by that?
Sure. So there's a sister. I won't say her name. She doesn't follow me anymore, but anytime she sees me write the word seduction, she just like she is so offended by it. Last year, she sent me a message and said something about I shouldn't be teaching women how to take other women's men and how to seduce men. And I said, sister, I didn't say any that, you're projecting. I didn't say any of that. So when I came out with the art of seduction, she was basically talking about how we are sexualizing Muslim women and we're objectifying Muslim women. And I told her that's not at all what I talk about in my workshops. And one of the things that I mentioned, because even some of the sisters who signed up, they were like, well, I want to learn tips and tricks for how to keep my man and, how to make him happy. And I said, well, that's not really what this workshop is about. This workshop is about developing a deeper sense of self-love. It's not about using your feminine wiles to manipulate a man, because that is an aspect of seduction that we see a lot, especially in Western media, on Instagram, on social media. We see women, using their bodies, using their words, using, tools of seduction to manipulate, to get things that they want. I'm not knocking sisters who do that, but that's not the approach that I'm taking. I'm taking the approach that seduction happens when you have an understanding of your body and sexuality, when you understand sensuality and connection and vulnerability. Then when you engage in the art of seduction, it's a form of emotional and tactile power sharing. So it's, I know who I am. I know what I'm capable of. I know what my body is capable of. And because we have established this level of intimacy between the two of us, I want to share that with you. I want to be vulnerable with you. And if that means, I allow you to do certain things to me, or, you do certain, I do certain things to you, seduction then is not about manipulation. It's a reciprocal process where you are engaging in both physical and emotional intimacy. And also there's an aspect of experiential vulnerability that happens. So it's not just about, how to give your man a lap dance. It's not it's not about that. It's much, much deeper. And I think a lot more impactful than that.
No, I love that. I love that. And is the course just for Muslim women, and is it just also just for married women?
No, it's not for Muslim women. It's not just for married women. Several of the sisters who took the first class were either not married, had never been married, or they were divorced. And I think they were pleasantly surprised that it wasn't what they thought it was about. It was like
Mm.
so much deeper than that. And when sister said, well, I'm not married yet, the idea that sexual pleasure is only within marriage is false. And I'm not talking about masturbation here, right? There's a way to access sensual and sexual pleasure that does not always happen within the confines of a marriage. And how you gonna know what to do when you get married? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You need to know, you need to know, you know, what you like and what to look forward to, and things that you can do once you get inside of marriage, rather than, you know, being a sister who comes to me and say, oh, I've been married for 2 years and I've never had an orgasm. So it's absolutely for unmarried women. And in that workshop, we don't talk about Islam at all. I'm Muslim, so I always say Alhamdulillah, mashallah, inshallah. Just that peppers my speech when I talk to anyone. But we're not giving a hadith. We're not using the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as an example. It's an interfaith, intercultural, intergenerational, international setting. The only requirement is that you have to be a woman and you have to be 18 and up. Because with this one coming up, we're going to use, you know, penis models and vaginal models, because I'm going to give them a little taste of what kunyaza is. So yeah, that's the only requirement. You have to be a woman and you have to be over the age of 18.
No, I love that, and I like that. I'll have to make sure I phrase this correctly because people might misunderstand what I'm going to say. I like how you said that it's not going to be. You're not framing it as in like this Islamic course, or you're not referring to hadith, because I think that's one of the things that, which obviously you know as well as I do, that when you're like a Muslim educator or something, everything you do, people then might put in a box of, okay, this is Islamic, as in this is just for Muslims, as if anything that we teach is not beneficial for non-Muslims. So I'm glad that, and obviously by speaking about in the language that even non-Muslims can understand, you're not always referring to the Quran, the Hadith. Not to say that we're not inspired by those, of course, sacred sources. It makes it accessible to everyone, and I think that, and that hopefully will demystify the myth that people have that religious people or religion can't benefit non-religious people. And I always bring up like Esther Perel, who well-renowned, famous sex educator, sex therapist. She's also a proud Jewish woman. I forgot the person who wrote the 5 Love Languages, Gary Chapman or John Chapman.
Chapman.
Yeah, that's international best-selling book, world-renowned. He's a pastor and he's very proud of his Christian faith, and he draws from the Bible to teach. So, but obviously, when he's giving his seminars and lectures, he won't always speak about the Bible unless obviously speaking to primarily a Christian congregation. But it just shows, I think, its importance, even as Muslims, how we can be cute and clever even when we're sharing our knowledge and expertise. You don't necessarily always have to frame everything as in Qala Allah, Qala Rasul, because people don't understand that. But then when their hearts get in understanding what we're saying, then you can then mention, obviously, I mean, they want to know more about yourself, what your inspirations and stuff are. So that's why I'm actually, I'm glad you actually kind of said that. But I had to kind of explain that, because if I just said, I'm glad you said that you're not going to mention the Quran and the Hadith, people will be like, oh, what are you trying to, you know, so I love that, what you said. Another question I've got. Can you tell us a little bit about, I know you touched on briefly about your first Art of Seduction seminar, workshop, of course, about how many people attended, some of the feedback. I know there was an article that was recently published about that, just so people can hear about that.
So we did the first one, and it was really kind of on a whim. I was talking to my manager, and that's another thing that someone just wrote in the chat, do I have to pay? Yes, you have to pay. Yes, you have to pay for the workshop.
Someone asked that question?
Yeah, someone asked that question, but people don't realize that I have a staff and I have a manager. You know, people are, you know, I pay people, you know, who are a part of my team. And I was talking to her about this workshop, and I said, you know, do you think we should do it? She said, yeah, let's try it. And we sold like 100 spaces within 2 hours. And I was like, oh, okay. So this is like a big thing. So the first class, we had 200 women. And the second class, we had almost 100. So we had about slightly over 300 women who took the first Art of Seduction. They were on 2 different dates. And the feedback was, I mean, some of the women who came to the course are they're typing in the comments. They were very surprised at the way that I talked about seduction. It demystified what a lot of women thought seduction was. I always like to leave women with some practical things that they can do and try. So we talked about jongama, which is the epitome of a woman in Senegambian culture, right? It's an attitude. It's a way that you present yourself. So we talked about, you know, embodying the jongama. And in part 2, we'll talk about, you know, accessing the jongama within. We talked about different traditional rituals that come from, African, Southeast Asian cultures with using bahur and different ways to scent the body. So I think that there are a lot of women who took that course who have never taken another course. Like they don't want to come to the spirituality stuff. They just want to come to the sex stuff. And they were very surprised at the fact that I have the same approach to both, and that I try to be as extensive as possible. And there were lots of good feedback, I'll say, after the workshop, which made me want to do part 2. Originally, it was only going to be a part 1, and then I said, you know what? Let's go ahead and do the part 2, because this is a conversation that I think we need to have, and we shouldn't be afraid to have those conversations. It's okay for women to have sexual desires. It's okay for women to want to know, how to be more amorous and seductive, in not only in the bedroom, but just in life, period. So I think it imbued a lot of women with what I call seductive confidence. So I'm really looking forward to part 2.
Mashallah, mashallah. And also, do you want to? Because I remember, I think you tweeted, I don't know if it was last year or a couple of years ago, that one of your goals is to be featured in Vogue. And I think
Yes.
it was a couple of months ago you was featured, mashallah, in Vogue
Mm-hmm.
Arabia. Can you talk a little bit about that and what the article was about? Because again, in the beginning, you didn't talk about that as well. So I wanted you mind talking a little bit about the article, and because I thought it was great, mashallah.
Yes, it was. And I said, this time they have my words, next time they'll have my face, inshallah. So
Inshallah.
Vogue Arabia did an article about the rise in women's sexual health empowerment in the Middle East. And so they reached out for me. I'd actually forgotten that I gave that quote, because it was back in November. We think that magazines, like they're working on the September issue in August. No, they're working on the September issue in like January. And so they were focusing on a platform, Moj, which is it's focused on the Middle East. One of the creators, I think, is from Lebanon. The other one lives in the UAE. And they asked me for my opinion on women's sexual health in the Middle East, because I lived in Saudi Arabia. And one of the very first public Village Auntie workshops that I did was in Jeddah. So I got a lot of followers behind that. I got a lot of people sending me messages in Arabic, and I'm like, I can't, if it ain't the Quran with the harakat, I can't read it. But it was nice because Vogue Arabia I've been reading Vogue since I was very young, and I would get Vogue Arabia from Jadir Bookstore when I lived in Jeddah. So it was very nice to be able to see my name and my quote come up in the article. So inshallah, there will be more to come.
Yes, definitely, inshallah. And I was very proud when I saw that, honestly, wallah, I'm very proud. Someone asked, would you consider doing like a recorded event, recorded course, like where they can purchase and like a masterclass?
Mm-hmm. I've thought of that. I've thought about that, and I'll have to say at some point I'm going to have to, just because the demand is growing, and I'm one person. The only reticence that I have around a recorded course is that a lot of what I do builds on the engagement and the energy that I get from the students. And I like that people can ask me questions in real time. Anybody who's ever taken a class will tell you I'm like running the slide deck, I'm checking the chat box, I'm listening for questions. I'm very adept at that. And so I worry that that connection may not come through in a recorded course. However, I do know that there are certain topics that just need to be taught. I don't have to interact with you. I don't have to, I can't answer every question. So I do know that recorded courses are going to eventually become a part of our teaching repertoire. So long answer to say, yes, I would do a recorded masterclass, inshallah.
And with your book, Passage,
Mm-hmm.
for the benefit of people who are maybe not familiar with it, I remember when we spoke a couple of months ago, you said that you're working on an expanded edition. Is that how is that going, and when are we likely to see the new book come out? Putting pressure on
I
you.
mean, like, at what time? Everybody's not as prolific as you are. Have you even written? How many books have you written now? 7, 8 books?
No. Only but the thing is, I'm procrastinating as well. I've been sitting on the latest one for like about. It was supposed to come out in November. I was targeting, and I've just been sitting on it. So
But
I
you
don't
know,
know.
I have 5 books from you, and I know I'm missing at least 1 or 2. So I'm trying to get to your level. It's coming. So I'm working on 2 books at one time. I'm working
Okay.
on the expanded version of Passage, which will expand it into a year-long guided journal. So there will be some additions to it. And then I'm also working on another book that's more like part autobiography, part memoir, part sex manual, part, everything book. And then the third thing, which I haven't talked about, but we'll just talk about it now. I'm working on a cookbook. So the
Oh wow. Okay.
cookbook's probably going to be ready first, and then Passage, and then the expanded version. We're actually looking to have the autobiography, memoir, sex manual book. We're actually looking for a publisher because that's a book that we don't want to self-publish. We'll do the cookbook and expanded version of Passage on our own, but we want to take it to a major publisher because we don't want it to be branded as a Muslim book. And this is not to say that I'm ashamed at all of being Muslim, because I'm not. It informs everything that I do. But the next wave of my work is to scale it beyond the Muslim community. I don't only have to talk to Muslim women, because even in my spiritual intensives, I have female pastors who come. I have Jewish women who come. I have, women who practice other traditional religions who come. So the work is not, I am Muslim, and that informs everything that I do. But the people who I am writing books for or doing workshops for don't have to be Muslim. So long story short, the expanded version of Passage should be, inshallah, bismillah, it should be ready after Ramadan. So it should be ready
Oh,
for
mashallah.
inshallah.
But but you said the cookbook is coming before Passage. Is that correct?
Yes, and
That you're
I'm
targeting.
probably not supposed to talk about the cookbook
Oh,
because
sorry.
my
You don't have
family's
to.
gonna be like, oh, but people have been
Okay.
asking me for years, like
Yeah.
before social media was even a thing. Can you teach me how to cook that? Can you teach me how to cook that? So I want to make a cookbook specifically for. I mean, anybody can buy it, but I want to make a cookbook specifically for Black women who want to learn how to make African food, and
Mm.
and teach it to women in a way that they can understand. And I'm going to be sharing recipes. There won't all be African recipes. The majority of them will be, but I want to share recipes from my own table, also along with some cooking hacks, because I have a big family. How to make delicious, wholesome food from scratch that is not expensive and does not take a lot of time. Because people always ask me, how can you have a job, you have a business, you have a
Mm.
family, and you're cooking from scratch? And I tell it's easy. So this
Mm.
cookbook, I hope to have it ready by Ramadan so I can give women some help in the kitchen, inshallah.
And with the different books, are they all? Are you planning to have the books under your name, Angelica Lindsay Ali, or do you plan to like maybe have some under the Village Auntie and some under Angelica Lindsay Ali or another
So,
name?
I don't know. Maybe the cookbook might be under the Village Auntie, but the other books I want to have them under Angelica Lindsay Ali. With the cookbook, that I want that to be a product of the Village Auntie Institute, because one of the
Okay.
things that I want to do is I want to expand beyond just talking about sex, beyond just talking
Yeah.
about spirituality. I want to have cooking classes. I want to have dance classes. I want to have classes on money management, entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Classes that are beneficial in a practical way as well. So I would like that to be a part of it too, inshallah.
Awesome. Good luck, because that's going to take a while. Because what will happen? Because I'm just remembering like when my first book was obviously about race and African history, and I was speaking a lot about that topic about anti-black racism and
Mm-hmm.
the contribution that black people have made in Islam and in history. And then obviously I wanted to talk about other things and write about other things. So when I started to slowly promote on what was going to be a taste of honey and about speaking about sex and intimacy, a lot of people couldn't take that. It was like, whoa, I thought you was going to be like the next Malcolm X. Now you're trying to be Hugh Hefner. It was just like, it took about a year and a half just to change people's um,
Mindset.
mindset that, you know, they
Mhm.
thought, okay, you're this one way inclined, and it's like a lot of these people you don't even know me, but that's the thing, that when people see you one way and you're always speaking about one thing, then it can be quite difficult to talk about other things unless you kind of they see you as a multifaceted being that's got different interests and things like that. So it's not going to be a culture shock. And even with Passage, because obviously there's a section about you put about the natural aphrodisiacs and the cooking recipes. Having a cooking book is not even going to be.
That won't
It's
be a
not going
big,
to be. You know, it
but the
won't be.
other
And
parts, but like the other parts, I could see like I'm like, okay, Habib is going to do a class in the Village Auntie Institute, and he's going to talk to us about establishing your rates as an entrepreneur. I want to also bring people in because some of those
yeah,
things like money management, you don't want to take class from me on that because I that is not that's
yeah.
not what forte.
We can talk offline as well about the we can talk a little bit now as well, but we talk more offline about when you're going with the publishers and also
Mhm.
making sure it's clear, even other books that you self-publish, that you get the pricing right, because that was something that I got burnt um, maybe
Mm.
twice with two of my books, where especially if you're, for example, so what happens is, you know, like Amazon, especially most people use Amazon, they take like 60%, right? So if you have,
Wow.
yeah. So they take,
Wow.
yeah. So you need to know. So traditionally, how it works is a wholesaler will take about 40%, and then the retailer will take about 20%. So it comes to about 60%. So the publisher obviously is left with 40%, and then the author normally takes between 5 to 15%. That's
Wow.
that. That's just standard. That's the standard industry, right? Then obviously with Amazon, because they serve as the wholesaler and the retailer, and because
Mhm.
of they've got traction to get customers that you probably wouldn't be able to reach by yourself. That's why they just take a large chunk, sometimes 60%. So that's why it's making sure, and especially obviously like with any product, if you're buying, so like what happened with me when I priced my book at, for example, I'll use round numbers, just say $10. And
Mhm.
then because I was buying small quantities, like maybe buying a couple of thousand, the price per unit was like just say, I think two, no, about $3. I'm using dollars for this example, $3. And then to ship it, especially if I'm shipping internationally, it might cost me $5 to $6.
See
So
how
and then Amazon, I'm charged on Amazon, and they're taking 60%, so they're paying me
wow.
$4. And then obviously because it's Amazon, they do the shipping for free. So the more I'm actually selling, I'm actually losing money because I'm paying to send it to Amazon, and per copy
Mhm.
might cost me $1 or $2. So just say it cost me, like I said, $3 to print, and then $1 or $2 to ship to Amazon for them to store it and
Mhm.
then to sell it. So the book is actually cost me like $5, and I'm getting $4. I'm actually losing
Wow.
money, and it's something that happens to even a lot of small businesses and small publishers.
Mhm.
That they haven't set the pricing right, and that's why if for example your strategy is I'm just going to be selling it from my own platforms, then it can work. As in,
Mhm.
okay, if it costs me $3, that's fine. I sell it for 9, and the difference is mine, my margin. That's fine. But if you're trying to sell it on Amazon, then you might need to mark up the book price a bit higher,
Good
and
part.
it's just something that sometimes people don't kind of really aren't aware of it. And even myself, and even I'm not sure how it works in the States, but in the UK, there's different pricing for, like, for example, just say like the Passage. This
Mhm.
can go into a letterbox, so that's a
Mhm.
standard price. If
Mhm.
it's maybe double the size, it's like it
Yeah.
might be considered large there, which is a different
Mhm.
price. And if it's a few centimeters thicker, then it might be considered to be a small parcel, and that's like another price. And then the
Mhm.
difference is like it could be like $2, $4, and like minimum is like $8. And it's all of these little things that are book size that people kind of. But I'm glad I learned in the beginning. But these are the kind of things where you get burnt and you realize, okay, this is need. I need to know how to navigate it, because, and it's very similar to the music industry. You know, when people go in, they sign in these contracts, they get
Mhm.
maybe like an advance, they think, oh, this is great. They get the exposure, not realizing they're not getting hardly a penny.
You're
And
not getting
then
money. Mhm.
yeah, so it's just about understand. So that's why it's important to understand the business of it, and then also understand how you want to tackle it. Because, like I said, there's not one right or wrong answer. Because if you want to go like mainstream, and then obviously naturally you can't expect to get like even like what's the woman that wrote Harry Potter? I forgot her
Um,
name. J.F.
Well,
Rowling, I think,
yes.
Rowling. So even with her first book, I think she's writing in her 30s when she got her first deal. Her royalty rate was probably maybe like about 15%, 10 to 15%. That's standard. Obviously, when you get big and you get more leverage,
Right.
then you can demand more. But that's just standard. But then 15% of a million books is obviously much more than
Right.
that's great. But then if you're going to sell 1,000 books or 100 books,
Hey, hey,
then maybe.
quiet.
But
Sorry.
then if you're, for example, like if you've got like a fan base of like, or like when I mean fan base, I mean like a tribe, shall I say, like what Seth Godin
Mhm.
says, like you've got 1,000 people that's dedicated, that's going to buy from you. You can sell directly to them and
So
you
that's
make
better.
more money. That is better, yeah. So that's why it depends. And that's why even book publishers, they are looking at, similar to like the music industry, what is your current um like fan base or target audience that you know that you can sell, because and when you work as a self-publisher, you realize that, and this is what people don't realize, because initially they just think, oh, having a book on the stand on TV, that's great, but not understanding the business behind it. Because do you want it for people to access your knowledge and your expertise, which is fine, or do you want to have it as a source of income? And then if you look at it as having it as a maybe like a sustainable business, then you
Hmm.
might need to think about, okay, it's not necessarily the masses, because if I'm going down that route, they're going to take a large portion of. But the reason why as well is because they're investing in like the marketing with the booksellers and things,
Definitely.
and that costs money, and they're putting money in front as well. But in terms of the actual sales, like if you've already got, like I said, just say 1,000, 2,000 dedicated people that you know that's going to buy from you, even if you could easily make more money than if someone were to go to a mainstream publisher and they were to sell
Hmm.
um, 5 times as many books as the independent person will sell.
So I should probably stick to the the,
No. I would just say it depends,
the
because the funny
self-publishing.
thing, no. I would say it depends, because not everyone is willing to learn, understand, study, and be prepared to fail somewhat in
Hmm.
self-publishing game as well. Because that's like a different. It took me even like maybe like about 4 or 5 years, and I'm actually thinking to maybe do some little short courses, because sometimes it's get tiring because people just always want me to post about sex, and then sometimes I want to talk about other things.
Like I
but
do know other stuff,
yeah, then
not
I know other
just
stuff.
sex.
But it doesn't get the traction. That's the thing as well. So it's like the same way if I post about race and stuff like that, they're not interested. So again, it depends what your goal is. So like, okay, for example, my Brazil book, because that was mainly like an academic, and it was obviously the research and stuff that I put into it. I can't attract the audience that I'm selling if I'm trying to sell like multiple copies. So that's why it's priced quite high.
Hmm.
Whereas
But I
if
don't
you're
think the
trying
price
to,
is very high.
well, in comparison to my other books,
Yeah. Yeah.
in
Okay.
comparison to my other books,
Mhm.
but yeah, in terms of an academic book, it will be in a range of like £50 or
Mhm.
$50 at
Mhm.
least. Where I was only priced at, but even when I priced at 22, of £23, people complaining, so I had to bring it down to 15.
Mhm.
But
That's
then
the
the
problem.
margin was just
Yeah.
so
And
it's
they
just
think
about
you're making all this money. And I think on Passage, I made like $2.50 from each book
no
because you have
way.
to, yeah, well, part of it was my fault. It was my first time, right? The
Yeah.
printer we used was too high. Then we were
Mm,
shipping everything. We did not bundle book rate shipping into the cost. So even though,
yeah.
you were paying this amount for the book, I wasn't really getting that much money. Now, if I were to do it differently this time,
Mm,
it's totally differently. But I knew going in, I have one of my mentors owns a bookstore, and he was like, Angelica, I'm just gonna let you know right now, you're not gonna get rich selling books. Either books
mm,
that somebody else wrote or books that you
mm,
wrote, you're not gonna get rich selling books. You
yeah.
write a book so
Yeah.
that you can have your name out there, but you
Yeah.
don't write a book so that you can get rich. And now I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
I see.
And also, what the good thing about when you write a book is that for some people, I don't know why, but when they see a book, they just feel automatically this person knows their stuff, and it
Mm-hmm.
just gives it a sense of credibility, and it gives you
Mm-hmm.
inroads into other different work streams. So then you can do
Absolutely.
um, like work streams or one to one, and you can even do it based on the book. So it does give you, like what the person said, it does um, to make money from books is not um, it's possible, but it's not. unless you're very clever with, because I was listening to Seth Godin, he's really good in terms of
Hmm.
breaking down in terms of how it works in terms of the book market and how you can leverage it to do other pursuits and speaking engagement and stuff like that. But book sales in and of itself is, again, it's very similar to the music industry nowadays. People don't
Hmm.
make their money of selling, well, it's not CDs anymore or downloads. It's by the touring and the merchandise and things like that. So that's kind of like how it works with books. But yeah, I would definitely say good luck with the mainstream publisher. I think it's good because they'll get you into places that it'll be harder for you to go into by itself, if that
Hmm.
makes sense.
Hmm.
But at the same time, just be wary of, you've already got an audience that you know you're going to generate sales, that you don't need them. And
Right.
another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of publishers, they expect the authors to do a lot of the marketing themselves.
Yes, that I knew. 'Cause I know people who write books, and I'm like, dang, you're doing a lot of marketing. That's like, yeah, I need
Yeah,
to sell books. I'm like, well, what
yeah,
what do you need the
yeah.
publisher for? I also want to say, Habib, that just you giving me that breakdown, like about publishing, self-publishing versus major publishing, I think that's another way of supporting women that we don't often see happen publicly. And I always tell people how supportive you've been of me and how supportive you are just of women in general. But the fact that you can share knowledge, like that little tidbit that you just gave me, like that little 10 minutes or whatever, people will charge money for that. People will put that in an
Mm.
ebook and, say, well, you can buy my $25 ebook. But the fact that you just so willingly give information, you give guidance, you give support. You're like, Angelica, why are you charging $100 for that? That's a level of support that I appreciate, because it's very practical and it's something that is perpetual. I don't have to ask you for the support. So I just want to, give you your flowers and tell you how much I appreciate not just you supporting me publicly, but and privately, but you also supporting me with practical advice and information. I really appreciate that.
Oh, exactly like that. And I appreciate that. Thank you. Now we've kind of, I think we kind of gone off topic, and then there's a lot of people that have made some comments I actually wanted to get into. And again, I don't really want to spend too much time speaking about um, what people thought I was going to ask you, because I think they can go to our previous live.
Yes,
When else then?
please.
Further is worrying about the cost of positive change. Okay, have you got any actually? I've got a lot of comments actually about that story that I told. Have you got any funny stories? I can tell you a couple since we last spoke. But have you got any funny stories?
About what?
Interesting stories that just like generally people. Okay, let me like people asked you.
Oh, like
Um,
that person who asked
yeah. Okay, let me tell you something. This is something as well that I wanted to expand
you.
on what we spoke about before. Remember, I said about I was thinking of even stop using sex educator.
I don't think you
I don't
told
know
me
if
that.
did I say that? I
Mm-mm.
think I mentioned it, but so I got a request. I received a request to jump on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, "Okay, so you're a sex educator." I was like, "Yeah." So do you? What type of services that you offer? And I said, "I'm not a therapist. I've done counseling, but it's mainly just kind of like books, so I can do like counseling, but it's very informal, and I'm very um blunt." But speaking from like a male's perspective, is again, it was a non-Muslim person that was asking me this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, okay, because we want to interview you. We heard about the kunyaza, the squirting. We can talk about that, and also if you can talk about sexual surrogacy services. I was like, I don't offer sexual surrogacy services, and I'm more familiar with sexual surrogacy services. And they were like, no, because a lot of our clientele are interested in, and I was like, okay. So I had to explain with I don't know if he called the host or the producer, and I didn't realize because he was like, because sex education that comes under the realm of sexual surrogacy as well. Now, for the benefit of people who are listening who's wondering what is sexual surrogacy, so you've got obviously sex therapists who generally deals with issues to do with sexual problems that's historic, and helps their clients overcome that. And then you've got sex coaching, which is the kind of seen as a bit more forward thinking and helping people achieve their sexual goals and relationship goals. And then the thing with sex educator, because it's so broad, it can encompass so many different realms. It can be a sex therapist, it can be a sex coach, it can be a sex writer, it's very broad. And then there's a sexual surrogate who works with a sexual therapist, and basically their part of their role is that they are engaged in the practical elements of some of the sexual practices. And it was actually a Hollywood film with Helena Hunt that came out a few years ago about it. I don't know if you recall. I can't remember what it's called.
There was a
Where there was
documentary.
a
There's a documentary about a woman
yeah,
who like fingers other women to come to orgasm,
right,
and I was just like, oh, that's
yeah,
what
right,
I would,
right. So because there's these titles, and especially sex educators is used interchangeably with all of them. You have to be
Mm.
quite clear in terms of what services, shall you say, you offer, or you, because people just assume that it's part of it, and I'm just like, again, each their own, but that's not what's going down here. But that's something that that was quite interesting. So
But
yeah,
no one has ever asked me. Well, I changed my um title on Instagram. I think it says intimacy and relationships expert now,
yeah,
because I was getting some weird DMs, lots of, pics of people's male members in my DMs. So I changed it and it seemed to have stopped. But I think the craziest thing that happened, my sister-in-law had um, a party at our house. She asked me to come
mm,
and do a session. And when I teach kunyaza to women, I show them how the man has to be, because we go over body positioning. And I was talking to one of my colleagues, and she said you can use a strap on. So a strap on is
mm,
basically where you strap on the dildo. It's an all women setting. I've used it, and it actually works very well because it can show, like, because the penis, when it's erect, is kind of up, and like it helps.
mm,
So, so my sister-in-law had this party, and I said I need a volunteer. So one of the women volunteers. I had the strap on, and it went well. I was showing her. She said, "Oh, because I have a back problem," whatever. I showed her. The next woman got up, and we did the demonstration, and she said, "Oh, I wore pretty panties for nothing." I said, "What did you think? What did you think we were gonna do?" She said, "Well, I didn't
yeah,
know. I was just prepared for anything," because she told me that there was a woman who does. She said she does what you do. I was like, she don't do what I do. If she does that,
yeah,
that's not what I do. But apparently, she performs sex acts on women, and I was like, we don't do that. That's not. No, we
yeah,
don't do that.
yeah.
So that's probably the craziest things. I mean, I get some pretty off the wall DMs, but that's the craziest thing that ever happened to me in person.
And I think one of the it's definitely one of the challenges of being as a man is that because there are a number of men that, and I've seen it, that will take advantage of like the sex educator, sexologist, this to engage in these type of acts, especially with like the yoni massage. That's very popular, especially in parts of the UK as well. And they use tantra and yoga, say that, oh, I need to actually show you. And that's something that I've seen it a lot and heard about it a lot, and that's something that I think this idea that you need someone to show you, physically even show you or do it on you to kind of learn, it's like, no, many of them, and that's what I try and tell people, like, of the ancient cultures and stuff, you don't necessarily need hands-on experience or hands-on, and that's something that I think that sometimes some of the questions that I get is a very, like, they want someone to exactly tell them what to do. And it's like, no, you don't. I'm not going to tell you exactly what you need to do with your wife. I can give you guidelines, and that's what a lot of the earlier books was. And it's for you to be creative in the bedroom. But I don't know, sometimes people just feel like, okay, you're going to give me the answers. You're going to tell me from A to Z, this is what I need to do. I'm going to do that with her. I get some men giving me like weekly reports about what they're doing. I don't need to hear this.
Like, that's more than that. Oh,
Yeah, like weekly.
I did have a young Nigerian couple, and they booked a consultation with me. I think that was the last couples consultation I did in a long time. And I said, okay, what can I help you with? And he said, I want to learn how to do oral sex on my wife. And I was like, okay, so he's like, can you show me? I was like, so no, I can't show you. He said, can you tell me? I said, well, Habib Akande wrote a book, and if you look on page such and such of the book, but he really, so he was like, no, I don't want you to be that prescriptive. He really wanted to he had a cultural blockage in his mind around
Right.
oral sex. And so he
Okay.
wanted to get beyond that, and he wanted to, find out, was it okay to do? And, she wanted to know how she should prepared, but I was like, I froze, and I was like, does he really want me to, like, I can't do that. But I can imagine that as a man, you get a lot of that from other men. But I can imagine the women who come in your inbox with nonsense and,
Yeah.
pictures and because we think that men are the only ones who
Mm,
creep in the inbox, and that's not
mm,
true, because sisters are creeps. So
yeah.
how do you deal with that? How do you deal with women who might come on to you, or like,
That's a good question. It depends how they come. So like there was what was the recent one, and actually obviously I blur the person's name, but someone asked what did she ask? What is how did she? Because she spun me. She was asking, "Oh, do I teach?" I think she asked like questions like, "Do I teach kunyas?" I was like, "Yes." She needs some help. Okay. Um, like okay, dot dot dot, and it's like, no, can you teach me? It's like, oh, sometimes I'm a bit slow, and I'm like, no, that's not what. I'll just tell them, like matter of fact, that's not what I'm about. Some I find some women, and I'm saying women not because some of them are not Muslim, not just sisters, will send me voice notes as if I'm all of a sudden going to like just get really excited and like, and it's even though it's in a pandemic and fly over to them. So you get that. And that's why even for myself, I try and post about other things that's just not about sex and intimacy because in a way it's like that's what I'm attracting if I'm just keep posting about that. And a lot of my posts I've kind of changed it the last couple of months where I'm kind of like as if I'm speaking to other men. So not to say that women can't contact me, but it's like this is a man speaking to other men about
mm,
obviously intimacy and women's issues. So if I because what found is that if I keep speaking and trying to as if I'm speaking to women, then sometimes women feel like okay, he's speaking to
mhm.
me. Let me kind of let's have a conversation. Let's talk. And I get a lot of like can we have a conversation? Like they'll be messaging me. Can we talk? And I was like, what for? No, can we talk? I don't need to talk to you. And then sometimes this is where being or the Nigerian in me can be quite
I
helpful.
was gonna say that's a very
It's
African
like it's like
response. What?
it could be like,
What?
are you gonna? So it'll be like, what are you paying? Have you bought my book? Are you paying for something? No, no, no. What are we talking about? That's what it helps. It's like, and then I think sometimes they're quite shocked by it because it's just
Mhm,
like, what? Like, if
mhm,
you're here to help, it's like, no, I'm not. I didn't say I'm here to help. And then there's a lot of people that have got these ideas that I'm trying to solve so many people's problems. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to do that.
mhm.
So it can be, it's the ones where there's some that just send images and you're just like, okay, this is a bit too much. You just delete it. And then they're the ones that are not difficult. It's the ones which are um, talking for a period, asking about all these questions, blah blah, and then it's they're trying to get find a way in, and that's when you're just like, okay, I see where
Mhm.
you're going, and that's why normally it will be. I'm trying to be quite direct and blunt, like, okay, what is it that you want? A lot of the times the answer is very straightforward. I can't kind of help you, kind of thing, and it's just kind of like not trying to get into kind of conversation because that's just like unnecessary. Because it can be just what is the issue? What are you looking for? This is
Mhm.
how I can give you some answers, or go and buy my book, or go to Village Auntie, or leave me alone. It's just very standardized like that.
Right.
Otherwise, well, I think that's one of the dangers because at the end of the day, I'm still a man, and
Mhm.
if you fall into the trap of having regular conversations and stuff like that, then obviously you can easily be lured. And I'm not someone who's going to pretend that no, everything. If you're doing something for the sake of our love, you're doing something with good intentions that you can't get lured, and of course you can.
Of
So it's
course.
just a case of trying to be, like I said, be matter of fact and what do you want? So then they kind of realize, okay, it's kind of rude, but okay, maybe still can help me. And then if it's something that they just want to kind of engage in like conversation, it's like, no, it's not really not interested. Um,
You
and
said
it's just
it's
like, what are you gonna
very
pay me?
Nigerian. Huh?
Yeah, and it's just like, you're gonna pay me for and it's like, no, then it's like, I don't need to talk to you then. And it's like, okay, I don't need to talk to you.
Somebody,
But
somebody,
yeah,
somebody asked me, they were like, oh, I don't see how you can, like, how do you do work? You don't talk to men on your page, and you won't let men come to your workshops, but you talk to Habib. And I was like, yes, but Habib, one, has excellent adab, mashallah. Two, he's a professional. We're in the same field. We're not, and we don't sit and talk about like sex acts. We don't talk about sex really. We talk more about what are the issues that we see that are common. We talk about things like business, like, you know, should you do this workshop, or, you know, can I interview you about, you know, how you taught women kunyaza? And I think it's unfortunate that people don't realize that adults can have serious, practical conversations about things without them turning into something that's haram, or without them turning into something that is in any way, you know, untoward, right? And I think that speaks a lot to how we have made sexuality just like a dirty word that we can't talk about it at all. So that's yeah. That's
No,
I've always
no,
wondered how you dealt
no,
with your yeah.
no, I agree. I think it's even when I think about the story when Sulaim went to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and she was asking about nocturnal emissions,
Mhm.
like wet dreams, and he just answered a matter of fact, yes, women can emit fluid the same way a man can. And even
Mhm.
some of the women, like Salama, was surprised and shocked, and some even the hadith says like covered their face. Others laughed because they didn't know, and they were unaware, and they said, "Can a woman see fluid like a man can see water?" And he said, "Yes," but it's just like matter of fact. It's like
Mhm.
it's not an issue, but because sex is being, yes, it's a private affair, but because it's when people see it that are not comfortable talking about it, it's always when they think about sex or seeing a man and a woman speak about it, everything has to do with salaciousness and they must be doing it. It's like, no, you can actually have a conversation around the issue, not
Mhm.
necessarily speaking about the act, and it's not going to evoke the same things that you're kind of thinking of. It's because every time, or maybe when they think about sex, they're just thinking about within the realm of something must be going on, like a scandal. Like if they were to see a man and a woman speaking, they must be up to something. And it's not
Oh
necessarily
my
that there's an issue with the two people, it's the people that are looking at them, that their
God. Mhm.
mindset and their thoughts. So, and that's why, again, similar to like the money issue, yes, money is a private affair and people generally don't like to speak about obviously their own financial situation. But I think it's important that we do have different, more conversations around money and business and some of the pitfalls that people go through. So people can feel empowered and understand, okay, this is even, it's okay to fail, it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to lose money. Because I think waiting for until I've made written the perfect book or made the perfect workshop before you let it out to the world. I think that's where a number of people fail, because a lot of people not fail, sorry, a lot of people they're not utilizing their potential, because a lot of people have got ideas and are
Don't they?
creative in different pursuits, but they're waiting for perfection. And I think obviously perfection is only with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As long as, the way I look at it, as long as something is not factually incorrect, anything else is fine. As in,
Mhm.
there'll be people who, you know, will read like my book and would be like, I don't like the way you said such and such or you spoke. I thought that's fine, it's not for you. End of story. Move on.
That's also a very Nigerian thing.
Yeah, but it's no, but it's
Let's
like
go.
no, but it's not for yeah, it's not for everyone. And I think trying to please, even if not only in terms of books, but trying to even if you're a speaker or whatever, like you can't please everyone. It's impossible. And they're your audience, or even people who are like what you're doing, who you don't even aren't aware of, who like your style, who like your uniqueness, who like your personality, they'll appreciate you. Others who might like, oh, I don't like you the way you're talking about such and such, a way speaking like this, way speaking like that. You can't cater for them. So that's why just it's no point wasting your energy or time on people who kind of like who don't appreciate what you're doing. And that's why I think we do spend a lot of time looking at now maybe negative comments or haters or whatever you want to call them, naysayers, but they're not for you. So it's no point kind of wasting any of your energy or time on them kind of thing. So I saw a
You
couple
know
of
what?
comments. I don't know. Go
Something
on.
that something that has come up is a lot of women have been asking me like, oh, well, men need this information too. You should open your workshops up to men. Why don't you talk to men? Or I'll do a workshop and a sister will say, well, should I take this workshop by this brother? And I'm like, you just sat through a 4-hour workshop with me. And now you're asking, should you sit through a workshop with a brother? Well, I think maybe he can help me like perfect what I've learned in your class. And there seems to be to seek male validation, and they feel that something is not it's not complete unless a man is present. What do you think about like women-centered spaces and the importance of women having women-centered spaces?
That's a powerful question. It's an important one. I I think it's very important that we have. Hello, can you hear me? I think
Yeah,
it's
I can hear
frozen.
you.
Oh, okay. Um, I think it's important not only we have women-centered spaces and women organizations, institutes, but I think it's important we have to how we refer to women who are qualified, who are knowledgeable, because it's like when we refer to men, they're scholars. Women, she's a
Mhm.
sister. It's little things like that. It's the language as well that we, even as women, I've noticed women doing it as well. That if there's a woman that is knowledgeable, knows her stuff, she's a sister. If it's a man, he's a sheikh, he's an ustad. It's little things like that that we, so in people's mind, the knowledgeable people, the people that know, are men because they're the scholars, they're the knowledgeable ones. Women are only knowledgeable about literally women's issues, and I think that's a problem. So this idea that, and I do hear it, and I'm not surprised that the sister said, even after learning from you, I need to kind of seek that knowledge from a man to kind of validate what you've said. That is something that we've kind of created this culture that male authority and the male validation is more important than what a woman has said because she has got her knowledge or whatever is not as quite as complete as a man is, and that's something that I mean, how can we change it? Because there is that problem. It's by even with little things, like I said, in terms of when we are speaking about women authorities, and like when I speak about yourself, I say you're an authority, not oh, mashallah. Uh, what do people say when they say oh, just sister, not an authority, an expert? You
Mhm.
use these kind of the same way you say it about a man. I don't really like using the term sheikh and sheikha just because again, it means different things to different people,
Right.
even as scholars to some respect, because as Muslims as well, when people think about scholar, we generally refer to someone who's given fatwa, someone who's a jurist, someone who's going to say this halal, that's haram, and that's something
Yeah.
totally different. Whereas you can be a scholar in different fields, and that's
Mhm.
them um, for legal rulings, because that's a big thing in and of
Mhm.
itself. But in terms of people who are knowledgeable, people are qualified, people are experts, and also when we talk about who is qualified or who qualifies that person, because a man, and I've seen this especially within a Muslim community, can learn from a non-Muslim institute, and he is more
Mhm.
qualified in terms of more than a woman who's learned
Mhm.
with scholars in even if it's in Saudi Arabia. So it's not only if
Mhm.
it's only in Africa they'll look down on, even if it's in Saudi or whatever, she's still a student of knowledge, whereas the man is a sheikh, he's a scholar, he's an alim, and this is something which both men and women, I've seen men and women do this. We have to be careful with how we kind of refer to people as well. I think so that we have to change that narrative that women can be like the highest rank I think I've seen generally in the Muslim community when they're referring to women is maybe like a coach or like a transformation coach.
Mhm.
That's the highest rank or life coach. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
Whereas the
But
man can be the life
that's
coach, that's got yeah. So that's why I can see why people feel that okay, even though I'm learning from you, I still need to go to a man to kind of put the stamp because for him to
Mhm.
give you the tick to say yes, Sister Angelica, she's right here. That's the problem. So I think we need to kind of change that. And it's not a case of, um, well, again, it's not to say that women should speak to men as well, but sometimes if more women maybe offer their services to men as well, then it's like, no, I'm not just educating women. I'm educating anyone who wants to know this, whether you're a man, whether you're a woman, whether you're a Muslim, whether you're non-Muslim. And then I think then that will change some of the attitudes that people have because if I just see women that's just teaching women and not saying that this knowledge is beneficial for everyone, then you always just rank her amongst women.
Mhm.
Whereas if you've got a man who is saying that even if I'm mainly speaking to men, but everyone's welcome, then you're going to rank him as in he is the best amongst everyone, if that makes sense. And I just
Mhm.
think maybe
That does-
that might be the reason why sometimes people may feel, oh, I need to get the male validation or male approval. But and I do think that things need to change in terms of we need to check ourselves, and that means like women checking men and men checking or encouraging women to kind of like, no, actually, you're more than qualified to kind of speak about this, or you don't need someone to. And again, I'm not speaking about an ijazah with teaching the Quran and things like that. I'm not speaking about that. That's you need like, well, if you're for the traditional Islam, you need like approval from an authority, whether you're a man or woman. I'm speaking about a number of these topics that what makes someone who has read a couple of books about psychology and intimacy and gives a workshop about intimacy in Islam, what makes them more qualified than someone who is certified and has been teaching for over 15, 18 years. But the person will still look at someone because they've read a couple of books, like, is it Men Are From Venus and Mars or whatever, and then they'll
Mm-hmm.
consider them to be an authority. No, it's true.
Yes.
But again, I think
It's true.
sometimes it's just about saying it to the person for them to reflect, because I don't think they're aware of it, because I just think we're just naturally, like I said, even the choice of words that we use, men are
Mm-hmm.
scholars, women are sisters, things like that, or women are
I
at
need
the
to
most
change my
student of
bio.
knowledge.
Maybe I need to
Yeah,
change my
it's things like
bio.
that. Yeah, yeah, it's things like that. So that's what I think that can change people's perception, where they feel actually I don't need this man's validation or approval, when there's someone who's just as is more versed and knows their stuff, not in spite of them being a woman, because they know their stuff, so to speak. So I think that's how we can
Mm,
maybe change the narrative. Um,
that's good advice. I need to update. I
just
need to update my bio.
just conscious of time. How long have you been on there for? Subhanallah, it's
I
11:30.
I
I don't
don't
think I might not be able to
remember.
record this. I mean, save this. Isn't there like a 1 hour limit? Before we head off, what did you make of coming to America?
Oh my gosh,
A
Habib.
bit of a sidebar.
So it's
I mean, you have watched
interesting,
it,
right?
right?
I've watched it. I've watched it twice. So I hated it. I won't say I hate it. I strongly disliked it. Um, I saw it when I was 13. It came out right around my 13th birthday. And I watched it with the eyes of a 13-year-old. I was just coming into knowledge of self, just really coming into like studying about African history and African culture. And so I loved it, right? It's one of the reasons why I started taking African dance. Watching the reboot with the eyes of a 45-year-old, I cringed literally from the first 5 minutes. I think that it perpetrated a lot of negative tropes about relationships between Africans and African Americans. I think it pathologized Blackness and diasporic identity. I think
Mm.
um, it objectified women um, as sex objects and also as being completely devoid of sexuality. So you're either Bopoto, right, which is this
Mm.
voluptuous, sexy woman who will do whatever you want, or you're Mika, who is sort of asexual, right? She's a very beautiful
Mm.
woman, but she does not have romantic aspirations. I think the dance scenes were way too short. The only thing I loved about it, I loved the styling and I love the dance scenes. I know a lot of the dancers and drummers. That's really the only reason why I watched it. But I think that it was cheesy, right? I don't think that it was supposed to be as good as the original. It's never good as the original. But I just think that in 2021, we're so far past a lot of these stereotypes. There was no need to regurgitate them. It was like, it just it's like that's why people be saying stuff about, that's why people be calling me Obroni when I go to Ghana, because they see movies like this, you know what I mean, like we're not all that dumb, you know, and this just
Yeah.
like, you know, just like it's too campy, it's too over the top for both Africans and African Americans. So and you know, Wesley Snipes is a good comedic actor.
Mm.
I like that he said Bapoto instead of Bapoto, right? I like that he put his
Mm.
little accent on there. But I also think, you know, the soldiers with the shake weights, you know, that was a sexualization, you know, a fetishization of the Black man. This idea that, oh, okay, go play with your Kalashnikovs, you know, this idea that Africans are just naturally just militaristic and barbaric. I mean, I could just go on and on. That, but Habib, I don't like anything. I'm hypercritical
Really?
when it
Okay,
comes
but
to
did you like the first
films.
one?
The first one I liked it, but I was 13. when I saw
But
it.
have
So
but no,
the
but have you
nostalgia of
watched
it.
it since?
I've watched it since, and I'm like, oh
Mm.
gosh, it's
Really?
problematic. But I still like the dance scene in it. I
Mm.
think I have the same critiques of the old one as of this one. But I think that when the first one came out in the late '80s, that was at that time in America of cultural transformation and liberation. We were coming off of the Black Power movement of the '60s. The African liberation movement, has started to die down because they had imprisoned a lot of people, and you had their sons and daughters then coming of age. And so you had X-Clan, and you had Public Enemy, and you had Fight the Power, and wear the African medallion. So it's like coming to America was like Black Panther was
Mm.
for us. So it was different. But I will also tell you that I don't like anything, Habib. I'm the worst person to watch a movie with, because I'd be like, that's not true.
Really?
That's wrong. They messed that up. That's not really from there. Why they got, Nigerian names, but they got, South African accents, so that's me. So
Yeah.
if you want to watch it, watch it. But it was hard for me to make it through. It was really hard for me to make it through the whole thing. It was just so much. So
It was
yeah, what do you think
cringeworthy. It
about it?
was no, it was. I mean, you gave a great review. I agree with everything what you said. I just found it very cringeworthy. I think it was painful. Um, but I'm actually interested in what films then do you like, because if you've got a critical eye vision, there's nothing wrong with that. Because if you didn't
So
like the
there's
first one, I'm like, what films do you like
okay.
then?
So the first one, I like the first one. I
I
like the
love the
first
first
one.
one.
I love the first one. As now I'm kind of like, my children love it. They've watched it. I love the
Mm,
first one, but I think the first one was for a moment in time, and I love it for that. Uh,
okay.
African focused films that I like. I'll tell you one that I absolutely love. It's a series called Black Earth Rising with Michaela Cole. OMG. That woman is phenomenal. It is
Mm.
so good. It's so layered. It's so nuanced. You're watching it and you're like, wait, love it. Absolutely love it. I loved Black Panther. Uh, you
Okay.
know, I loved Black Panther. I loved Beyonce's Black is King because I could read the imagery and I knew the backstory, and I read it as a, human adaptation of Lion King. I shouldn't have said I hate it. Coming to America too. It's not I wouldn't watch it again willingly. I'll say that. And
Okay.
I wouldn't tell people not to watch it. Let's say that. I wouldn't tell people not to watch it. But Michaela Cole, she could stand up on a screen and recite the ABCs, and I'd be like, y'all need to give that woman a BAFTA, an Emmy, a Grammy, child, give her a Nobel Prize, whatever. I think she is amazing.
So what was it called? Was it Black Earth Rising, did you say?
Black Earth Rising, I think that's the name of it.
Okay,
It should still be
I'll
on
check that
that.
out. I've
Mhm.
not seen that. Okay, so
If
there are
not,
some
I'll
films
drop
that you do like.
it. Huh? Yeah.
There are some films that you do like, because I was getting worried. I was thinking, if you didn't like the first Coming to America, I was like, she's probably definitely not going to like Black Panther.
But I like old movies. I love Black Orpheus. That's a really old movie.
I've
It's
seen
set in
that.
Brazil. That's
Yeah,
up your
yeah,
alley. Black
yeah, yeah,
Orpheus.
yeah.
I love that. I love Cotton Club. That's an old
Mm.
movie. But I watch a lot of African films too. So
Okay, what's your favorite
like
African film?
I love Mr. Ibu.
I've not seen that.
Mr. Ibu films where he has this him and his son. I like the wedding party too. Banana Island Ghost, 50. I just watched what's the name of that movie? It was something about the party planners. I was just watching it today. But I watch a lot of Nollywood movies, and yeah, they're
Okay.
cheesy and they're corny, but I don't know, I like them. So
Have you seen what was that? Oh, it's a brilliant South African film.
with,
It's
with the
about
one
catching feelings, I
Catching
think it's called.
Feelings, yes,
Yeah,
Catching
that's one.
Feelings.
That was a
Hmm.
brilliant film.
It
That
was it
was
was great.
brilliant. Yeah.
That's my kind of movie. Catching
Okay. No, that
Feelings,
was a very
that's my
good
kind
film.
of,
And
I
that was
like
very
that.
authentic to South Africa as well. I didn't feel like it was no. I love that film.
And it was
Okay.
complex. It was, you know, there was
Yeah.
some complexity there. And
Hmm.
the thing I like about African films is that they don't always wrap up nicely at the end. Like you'll
Mm.
watch a love story and like everybody die at the end. And you're like, that's it?
Yeah.
That's the movie's over? They just dead? They
Yeah.
just went across the bridge and they all died and then the movie is over. Ain't no part one, part two. That's what I like
Yeah,
about.
well, actually, yeah. When I reflect, that's actually true because there's not this idea that needs to kind of sell like a fairy tale or like a good ending. It's just like, yeah, sometimes the ending is just so abrupt and it's just like, what happened? And it's like, yeah, that's it, a hard
Everybody did.
stop.
Everybody died. The Bridge. There's a movie called The Bridge, and it's like that. And I
Okay.
was like, I wasted 2 hours and everybody died. So yeah, but it's more realistic. I watch more documentaries though, so that's you know,
Have you seen the Winnie Mandela documentary,
I haven't.
documentary film?
I
Oh,
haven't.
that's brilliant. That's
I have
brilliant.
to watch
That's
it.
brilliant.
I have
Definitely would recommend. She's probably one of my favorite um,
to watch it.
African personalities of the modern era. So,
She's
but I think
got a bad rep. A lot of people don't know enough about
of her
her.
story, that's why.
Right. Hmm.
I think as well because, for example, like with her husband, with Nelson Mandela, we know more of his story. That's why even some of the unsavory parts of his life, because he achieved such great things, you can overlook that because you know more about him. The same way Martin Luther King as well. The same way for Malcolm X, because you know more about them and what they've accomplished. But with figures like Winnie Mandela, unfortunately, because people just speak about some of the alleged bad things that transpired, that's what they think about, and they don't think about the achievements and accomplishments that she did as well.
Hmm.
So if I find that link, I'll send it on to you. But I definitely would
Yeah,
recommend the
send it
Winnie
to me.
Mandela documentary. But
I'm
just
trying to
before we
get up
go,
the nerve. I'm trying to get up the nerve
uh,
to watch the Billie Holiday film, but Andra Day, as a singer, I can't listen to her. So I heard she was very good in the film though. So I'm gonna try
I've
to.
not heard of that.
Yeah, she won a Golden Globe for it. They said she was excellent, but her music is not. It's not. It's coffee, and I'm a tea person. It's like that kind of thing.
Okay.
Like it's good, but just not to my ears. But I heard it was really good. So I'm trying to
What
watch.
are you planning to watch the I can't remember what it's called, the Aretha Franklin film as well that's supposed to come out.
Mm-mm. Let me tell you something about Aretha Franklin. I'm from Detroit. Aretha Franklin is like our auntie, and I already know they gonna mess it up. I already know. I'm already mad. They have not even finished filming the movie, Habib, and I already got an attitude. No, I'm not gonna
Why?
watch
Why?
it.
Why?
I'm not
Why?
gonna watch it. Because they're not gonna do justice to Auntie Riri's
Okay.
legacy. Yes, she was problematic in some ways, but I don't know. I'm gonna have to
Mm.
save it and watch it later on. I actually don't like biopics very much. I don't. I always think that they are just not that good. But I'm not watching the Aretha Franklin one. Nope, I'm not.
Did you like Malcolm X?
I liked Malcolm X, but Malcolm X came at a very particular time in my life where I
Mm.
was exploring Islam. And so I liked it
Okay.
for that. I think Denzel Washington did an amazing job in that role. And he's probably one of the few people that I can say really embody that role. Hated Will Smith and Ali.
Yeah, that was
Um,
terrible.
don't like Jamie Foxx at all. I don't care if he won or whatever for Ray. Can't watch that. Um, see, Habib, I'm a terrible person when it comes. I'm terrible because even stuff that I like, I'll say, well, that part is raggedy and that part is raggedy. So I'm just, yeah, I'm terrible.
No, I loved Malcolm X was definitely one of my, or still is one of my favorite films, apart from
Hmm.
obviously the omission of his sister Ella Collins. That's I still don't understand why that's probably the
Yeah,
not the only but one of the biggest blemishes on the film. But other than that,
absolutely,
it was definitely fantastic.
absolutely.
But
He was excellent.
he was.
He
I
was
think
excellent.
you've graced us with your presence for far more longer than I thought you would. So Jazakallah khairan for that. Can you again, just for the benefit of people that maybe have joined the last, I don't know, half an hour, 20 minutes, can you talk a little bit about your course that's coming up, where people can buy it, for 5 minutes or 2 minutes quickly? 'Cause I want people to remember what. Yes, we're here to talk, but we're here to promote.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. Somebody said I sound like a Virgo. I'm a Virgo through and through. I'm a Virgo sun and a Virgo moon. So I'm a Virgo. So yes, we're having the Art of Seduction Part 2. It will be on Saturday, March 20th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link is in my bio. You can follow me on at Village Auntie here on Instagram. You just click the link and it takes you directly to my Shopify. It will be the only Seduction Part 2 workshop that we do this year because our calendar is already full with classes. In this class, we're going to bring you holistic anatomy again. We are going to have live dancing again. This time I might teach the dancing, and that's a rare treat that you don't often get. We have recipes from the Kinky Kitchen that we will be sharing, and we'll be talking just more about how to funnel that and improve your seductive confidence. We'll talk about fantasy and role play and also BDSM. As ways to engender closeness and also as a way to heal trauma, sexual trauma in the bedroom. And we are going to do a little tiny primer on Kunyaza. So this is one that you will not want to miss. And it's only, see, I'm changing my language, Habib. It's only $100, which it will never be offered at this bargain price again. So I advise you to sign up. We have not done a lot of promotion for it, and we've already sold half the spaces. So this is your one shot to get it. You have 2 weeks. It's $100. It's well worth your time. The link is in my bio. You can sign up today.
Mashallah. And have you got any merch left? Because I remember before you had some t-shirts and stuff.
I do. The t-shirts are done, but we have new merch that's dropping very soon. We have new t-shirts and bucket hats that are dropping soon, but we have postcards that we are selling now on the site, and they're great for Eid. They're great for Ramadan. They're also great if you just want to frame them. They're printed on beautiful paper. They're full color postcards. Those are available on the site. You can still purchase Passage as a downloaded ebook on the site. And just make sure you bookmark the Village Auntie shop because we will have merch dropping soon, and that will be where we will be selling the ebook very shortly.
Mashallah. Jazakallah khairan. That was brilliant. That was great. I loved how you pictured that at the end. And I was actually going to ask you about the Passage ebook. So yeah, I think that's more or less everything I kind of wanted to cover. I apologize for anyone that's sent me some questions because I've not really asked.
We just been talking.
We've just been talking, but yeah, we'll definitely have to do it again. Yeah,
yes,
I think it was better. We have to do it again, inshallah. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend, and inshallah we'll speak soon.
Okay, inshallah. Thank you so much.
No worries. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
I'm gonna try and save this now. Hopefully.
Okay.
How can I save it?